Trevs Show. I'm the Trev. It's too sweet. Anyway, getting back to Defunct Teams. And hopefully, I can do more than 3 this year. The good news is, this is part 1 of a 2-parter. Even better news, the team after this, or after part 2, is another 2-parter. Bonus! The goal is to catch up to 1967 and then worry about it after that, because after that is when you get one long team. But anyway, let's keep talking here. We're going to visit a time before the Penguins. The first time the NHL actually stopped in Pittsburgh. And you might get a good laugh out of it, just off name alone. But either way, we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates. Let's go over it. So the Pittsburgh Pirates. These Pittsburgh Pirates. Not these Pittsburgh Pirates. They played in the NHL from 1925 to 1930. But the history of the franchise can be traced all the way back to 1915, when they were known as the Pittsburgh Yellow Jackets, where they played as an independent team from 1915 to 1921, and played in the United States Amateur Hockey Association from 21 to 25, even going as far as winning the U.S. AWHA Championship in 1924 and 25. Despite this success, though, the Yellow Jackets owner at the time, one Ray Schooley, ran into some financial problems and sold the team to an attorney, James F. Callahan. And the team was granted admission to the HL on November 7th, 1925. Of course, the primary objective of this move, as is with most expansion in the early days, was to keep Eddie Livingston and his upstart rival league out of the market. And we will probably do a video on Livingston at some point, just a matter of when. So in doing so, Pittsburgh became the 7th NHL team in the league and the 3rd franchise in the United States. The name came about after Callahan had asked for and received permission from Barney Dreyfuss to use the name of Pittsburgh Pirates. Barney Dreyfuss was the owner of the baseball Pittsburgh Pirates, and the idea of similar branding sounded kind of appealing to either one of them. So there's your only real baseball connection. The Pirates played their games out of Duquesne Gardens, which is already a 35-year-old building by the time the Pirates came into the league. Most of the inaugural roster was made up of players who had played for the Yellow Jackets, with the major addition being that of Lionel Conacher, who had signed what was then an NHL record in salaries, having signed a 3-year deal for $7,500 a year, which in today's dollars is just short of $120,000 or just over $120,000 a year. And on top of that, they also brought in Odie Cleghorn as coach. Now, Cleghorn was notable for being the first coach to use 3 set forward lines and the first to change his players on the fly. A little bit of trivia there for you. So their inaugural season began on November 26, 1925. So just short of 2 weeks after they were granted a franchise, they were rushed in. And their first game was on Thanksgiving against the Boston Bruins. Now, Captain Lionel Conacher, who we talked about, scored the first goal for the franchise at 17:50 of the second period to tie the game at 1. And then Harold Dara scored the Pirates' first game winner, beating the Bruins 2-1 on the road. Roy Waters was in the ice for the first win in club history. So there's some more trivia for you. Here's another one. 2 nights later, the Pirates played the Montreal Canadiens and beat them 1-0. Now, it's not so much notable because the Pirates beat the Canadiens. It's notable because it's the last game ever played by George Vezina, who had left during the first intermission with chest pains and a high fever, and ended up passing away from tuberculosis about 4 months after that. So there's that. And the Pirates' first home game came on December 2nd, 1925, where they lost to the New York Americans in overtime. Just can't win them all, right? But in the 36 games the team did play for the 1925-26 season, they finished with a 19-16-1 record, which is good for third in the league, which also saw them play the Montreal Maroons in the playoffs. And in the semifinals, they lost to the Maroons by a total goals 2-game series of 6-4. And the Maroons, from there, would go on to win the Stanley Cup. So there's that. First season in, and they lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champs. But Herb Milks led the team in scoring during the regular season with 19 points. 36 games, only 19 points, but offense wasn't necessarily the hugest priority in Pittsburgh at the time. 26-27 saw the NHL grow in size, which led to the eventual split of the league into two divisions. And this is where the Pirates were placed in the American division. And the NHL also added 8 more games. So instead of 36 now, they're playing 44 games a year. Not a big deal, right? One subtle change in Pittsburgh. So Harold Cotton named new captain. Whereas one major change came in their production on the ice, in which the Pirates finished with a 15-26-3 record, which saw them finish 4th in the American Division, missing the playoffs by 8 points. But more troubling was the fact that, yeah, they missed the playoffs, but they finished 9th overall in a 10-team league. This is okay. There's always next year, right? The rebuilding process and getting better. Herb Milks again led the team with 22 points. So there's offense, but not by much. But on a positive note for the 26-27 season, and this is totally a retrospect moment, the Pirates did manage to set an NHL record which still stands today, as the Pirates and the New York Americans combined for 141 combined shots in a game, which saw the Americans win 3-1. Now, Roy Waters stopped 70 shots. So 73 shots against from the New York Americans. Now, 27-28 saw them get back to their winning ways as they finished with a 19-17-8 record. So pretty much identical to their first year almost, as far as wins and losses is concerned, just more ties, which is good for third in the American Division, and saw them set up against New York Rangers in the playoffs. And much like the Maroons 2 seasons ago, they lost to the Rangers 6-4 in a 2-goals total game series, or a total goals 2-game series. And much like the Maroons 2 years sooner, the Rangers went on to win the Cup. So call this the curse of the Pittsburgh Pirates. They go on to the playoffs but lose to the eventual Stanley Cup champs. Again. Herb Milks, though, did lead the team in scoring for the 3rd straight season with 21 points. Points are still there, so that's a good thing. It was about this time that thing that happened to the Yellow Jackets started happening to the Pirates. And they were running into financial problems again, and still playing at the Duquesne Arena, which by this time is now pushing 39, 40 years old. You gotta remember, it was built in the 1800s. So this led to James Callahan having to sell the team to an ownership group which included, but was not limited to, Bill Dwyer and Billy Leonard. Now, just a side note, this won't be the last time we talk about those two. Heads up. Dwyer was known as a prohibition gangster. And Leonard, who was a lightweight boxing champ at one point in time, was merely a front man. So, this is the new ownership group heading Pittsburgh into their soon-to-be final couple seasons. Despite the sale, though, not much got any better. Actually, it went the complete opposite way and got completely worse. In 44 games, they finished with a 9-27-8 record. Fourth in the Atlantic Division, and only 4 points ahead of the league worst Chicago Blackhawks. It was going to be a long, bumpy ride. But Harold Daw and Hib Milks both tied for the team lead in points with 12 each. That's the state of their offense and how bad it was getting being in Pittsburgh. It's the 29-30 season ended up being their last season in Pittsburgh. At this point, they're pushing for a new arena, but they're also losing money to the point where they're having to sell off players just to make ends meet. Biggest change, obviously, was that jersey. Being something that's going to be a little more permanent in their near future. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Ole Claycorn, the only coach they've had for 4 years in the NHL, decides to quit and be a referee. And he gets replaced by Frank Frederickson as the head coach for this season. Jerry Lowry was named team captain after the Pirates traded former captain Harold Cotton the previous season. Despite all this change, they hit the absolute low of the low in the NHL, finishing last overall with a 5-36-3 record in 44 games. That was terrible. They were last by 20 points. 20 whole points. So they were blown right out of the gate from day one. It took them a long time to find any offense because Harold Daw led the team in scoring with 32 points, which is a vast improvement to what the last league team leader was scoring, but 5 wins. Ouch. Now, at the onset of the Great Depression and the Pirates wanting to build a new arena but losing money at the same time, because again, Duquesne Arena is about 40 years old at this point. Most modern arenas, unless you're Madison Square Garden, don't go as old as 35. I mean, Nassau Coliseum was 42 before they built a new one. But anyway, the idea was proposed and agreed for the team to move across state to Philadelphia. Well, ideas for a new arena could materialize. It was only designed to be a temporary solution. The idea to come back to Pittsburgh was always there. But that wouldn't happen until 1967. Not with the next great expansion. But short and sweet, that's the Pittsburgh Pirates story in the 5 years that they played in Pittsburgh. They have an overall record of 67 wins, 122 losses, 23 ties, made the playoffs twice, again, where they lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champions both times. But your Hall of Fame list does include Lionel Conacher, Frank Frederickson, Mickey McKay, and Roy Waters. So it's not that they're not well represented, they just didn't win a lot in a time when they coulda, shoulda, woulda won a lot more instead of losing a lot more. But this story's not over. Like I said, this is only a part 1. Part 2 is coming. It's written. I have to film it. The last active player to play for the Pittsburgh Pirates was Cliff Barton, who last played in 1940. But having said that, stay tuned for part 2. It won't end well. Says I want to watch hockey shows. Well, thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've tuned into this point. It's a great thing for both of us. So, thank you very much. And while you're at it, give me that thumbs up. It helps everybody out. And while you're at it, if you haven't yet, hit that red button that says subscribe all over it. You may want to. Subscribe makes you feel good. It'll make me feel good if you do. So let's help each other out on this one. My socials are in the description down below. moving forward, as far as Defunct Teams is concerned, like I said, this is part 1. Part 2 is written. I have to film it. It won't take nearly as long as this one has. This next one coming up is short and sweet. Think the Wanderers, just without the burnt down arena. But either way, in the meantime, and in between time, be looking for more videos from the Trev. Later.